It was late, and the house was quiet, the kind of silence that made every breath feel loud, every creak underfoot feel like a scream. I should have been asleep. I knew that. I told myself that 100 times, but something kept pulling me back to that. One door at the end of the hallway, the one I wasn't supposed to open. I stood in the dark hallway, barefoot, heartbeat pounding. The only light came from under his door, a soft gold glow that flickered, like it was tempting me, calling to me, whispering my name, and I couldn't stop my hand from reaching out. I told myself I'd just listen, maybe just lean against the door, maybe say something if he was awake. But when I heard his voice low and rough, like he'd just woken up, or like he'd never fallen asleep, something inside me cracked. He said my name just once, and that was it. The sound of it shattered every rule, every line I had drawn between us, because I knew that voice wasn't meant for anyone else. It wasn't sleepy or confused. It was full of something I had been pretending not to feel for so long. I pushed the door open slowly, and there he was, sitting on the edge of the bed, shirtless, eyes on me, like he'd known all along that I would come, like he had been waiting for this moment, just as long as I had. His chest rose and fell, like he was holding back everything, and I didn't say a word, because if I spoke, I'd ruin it. He reached for me, and I stepped inside that room, like it was the only place I belonged. I didn't close the door. It didn't matter anymore. Nothing outside that room existed. Not the world, not the house, not even the rules. We were supposed to follow. His hand brushed my wrist, and it was like fire licking my skin, gentle and dangerous and impossible to ignore. He pulled me closer slowly, like he was giving me time to run, but he knew I wouldn't, and I knew he didn't want me to. I stood between his knees, and his hands found my hips, and I felt like I had been holding my breath for years, and finally I could breathe again. Finally I could feel something that wasn't guilt or confusion, just heat and need. And the way he looked at me, like I was something he'd been starving for, like he was scared I'd disappear if he blinked, and I wanted to tell him I wasn't going anywhere, that I couldn't. I was his in ways I didn't know how to explain, and I had been for a long time. He pulled me down into his lap, and I didn't hesitate. I didn't think. All I could do was feel his skin against mine, his breath against my neck, his lips so close that every word felt like a kiss. And when he finally kissed me, it wasn't soft, it wasn't gentle. It was the kind of kiss that burned away everything else and left nothing but us, in the center of a storm we had both tried to avoid. I didn't care anymore. I didn't want to. The way he touched me wasn't careful. It was sure, like he had been imagining it for as long as I had, like he knew every place that needed his hands, his mouth, his breath, and I gave into it all. I let go of the voices and the doubt and the rules, and I let myself fall into him. The morning light tried to creep into the room, but the curtains kept it soft, like a secret we didn't want the world to see. I woke tangled in his arms, our bodies warm against each other, his breath slow against my skin, and I didn't want to move. I didn't want to think about what we had done, what it meant, or where it would go, because for the first time in forever, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. His fingers were still on my waist, holding me, like he was afraid I'd slip away, like he needed me, right there as much as I needed him. He stirred just a little and kissed the back of my neck without a word, and it sent shivers all through me, because it wasn't just desire anymore. It was something deeper, something we didn't dare name, but it wrapped around us just the same. I turned to face him, and the way he looked at me made me feel like everything I had ever doubted was wrong, because his eyes told me I was his, that last night hadn't been a mistake. He whispered my name again, And this time it wasn't rough. It was soft, full of wonder, and something close to fear. Like he couldn't believe I was still there, like part of him thought it had all been a dream. And I reached up to touch his face, to show him I was real. I was his, and he was mine. The next kiss was slow, like we had time, like we had all the time in the world. And maybe we didn't. But right then, I wanted to believe we did. I wanted to believe we could make a world of our own inside. Those walls where nothing else mattered, where the past couldn't reach us, and the future didn't scare us. He pulled me close again, and I could feel that same heat building again. Not rushed, not frantic, just steady and strong, like it had always been there. Waiting for a moment like this, he moved over me with a kind of care. I hadn't known I needed his hands, memorizing every inch of me again, as if he hadn't just held me hours before, as if he couldn't get enough, and maybe he couldn't, because I couldn't either. There was no hesitation now, no guilt, no second guessing, just the rhythm of us bodies speaking what words couldn't, and every touch felt like a promise, not just of passion, but of something we were still trying to understand. He whispered things I'll never forget, things that burned into me, deeper than his touch, and I held on to every word, like it was all I had. And when we finally lay still again, heartbeats slowing hands, still tangled, I knew we had crossed a line we could never go back from, but I didn't care, because what we found on the other side of that line was real raw and ours, and I would walk into his room again 1,000 times, if it meant feeling that again, if it meant being his, if it meant he was mine forever, or just for now. It was enough. It was everything.